also, Eric, I have a lot of friends and ex-colleagues at GitHub who have high regards for you. I keep hearing great stories from them. And you have been instrumental in expanding GitHub's footprint. Like you set up the satellite, GitHub satellite in India and even in other countries. So you spoke about VMware. So tell me, how was it like working at Microsoft? What are your experiences?
I would not say I worked at Microsoft still. I would say I worked at GitHub. I think we worked really hard to keep GitHub as independent as possible from Microsoft. And, that's easier said than done in the context of a big company. I think Satya Nadella really understood the importance of GitHub and the developer ecosystem, and that we had to build GitHub in a way that still delivered choice to developers and felt independent. And so there's this really delicate balance between delivering an amazing experience across GitHub and the Microsoft suite of products, which makes a ton of sense and is the right thing to do. It actually makes those developers' lives better, but not kind of preventing them from deploying on AWS or, using systems other than VS Code or whatever it may be. And so, I think that was a constant journey, and it will continue to be a journey for the team that's still there. But I would say, GitHub is such a special place and has such a special place in the ecosystem. And that's, why I was so drawn to the opportunity to go and serve there. It really did feel like an opportunity to serve the community. And, I've been on the board of the Linux Foundation for almost 8 years now. And that's another kind of avenue through which I've always tried to do what I can as a non-developer to support open source development, right? It's kind of like my way of giving, since I'm not actually writing the code myself. Funny how I ended up in this space, having studied investment finance and not software development. I'm probably one of the only ones, but, I just came in with such like a deference for GitHub's place in the world. And I think, the vast majority of the leadership team felt the same way. Like we really were there to serve developers and do what we could to create the best home for developers possible. And there were a lot of challenges. I mean, GitHub was, I had somebody tell me it was literally the best instance of product market fit they had ever seen, because the company just absolutely, took off despite, quite frankly, quite a few flaws. I mean, there was no leadership structure, like no management structure until the company was over 300 people, which caused some cultural challenges that we had to overcome, because that, rather unsurprisingly, just does not scale. There were a lot of parts of the business and in how we operated that just weren't built up at all. And the company had been, unbelievably successful, but you can only get to so much of a point with that kind of maybe semi-controlled chaos, I'll say, until things start to break. And in particular, when I arrived, we were doing something like 350 in revenue. And, the company publicly announced they crossed $1 billion recently. I do not take credit for that. That Erica Anderson, who is the CRO, funny enough, there were 2 Ericas on the exec team there, but she is amazing. She's at Notion now. She gets the credit for that. And I think our partnership with Microsoft and the way we navigated that and leveraged the 40,000 sellers that Microsoft at least had in the field at that time really helped accelerate our growth. But there's just a lot that needs to change in a company when you go through that level of scaling. And so, for example, getting intentional about our international expansion, and India was the first. We had a bunch of other markets actually planned, because, I used to give this keynote talking about the next 50 million developers and where they're going to come from. And, it's not the US, folks. And GitHub had still been very US centric in its strategy, even though we had employees all over the world. And it was time to get much more intentional about how do we make the right investments in not just India, which was very important. And I think the fastest growing market, and I think maybe the second largest market on GitHub. I know India surpassed China now, which is pretty awesome. But we were looking at Africa and Latin America, and I think that was twofold. First, I mean, obviously we were running a business; it's a great business opportunity, but also it's just an amazing way to help support developing economies. Bringing people into open source, giving them exposure to learn how to code and participate in the global developer community has literally changed people's lives, and even changed, financial outcomes in villages and things like that, because they have somebody that goes on to become part of this global community. And I think, again, going back to the responsibility that we all felt at GitHub, that was a huge part of it. Like, how can we help support this next wave of developers and create a home that's welcoming and inclusive and lets them, improve their lives. So it was an amazing journey. I'm really proud to have been a part of it. There's still a lot of things that I would love to go do and fix. I was pulled into venture. I was not planning on going into venture, but funny enough, Satish Dharmaraj, who's one of my partners now, is actually the guy who introduced me to Satya Nadella in 2012, which led to us doing a deal with Microsoft, which led to the eventual acquisition discussions, which led to me taking the COO job. And then he called me about coming into Redpoint. And I was like, wow, this is very full circle. I don't know, years and years and years later.